Oops. Yeah. Good morning. How's it going? 98. Almost episode 100. Hey Fuxia, how's it going? Almost 100. Hey Stigias, what's up? What's up? Yeah. Today we'll be finishing the driver. I think I'll put the driver, I will draw him to a degree, and the vehicle I won't touch until I do it offline, do all those little changes. Hey Atsuki, how's it going? Like I said before, I want to add a little bit more body to the vehicle. We'll draw the pilot into the seat with the design that's on that side. Yeah, I think that those kind of things I'll do offline. But yeah, so today I'll be working on the pilot. Yes. Let's start. Might as well. So it's Friday. How exciting isn't that? I like the idea in this IP about like pressure suits, and it like back to basic shapes almost. It's like a Minecraft, not Minecraft, StarCraft Templar almost. You know, that strange balance between big and chunky versus metallic suits versus 1940 technology. It's a fascinating kind of mixture. And I see a lot of other people also play around with that. I think Captain Bose shared an artist on Discord in Inspiration, which I also found. A few days before he posted it, but it's more or less someone doing the same kind of world, but his designs are way further out there. They're almost alien, and they don't feel quite as tight to the time, but aesthetically it's the same. It's the same kind of military grading and all these kind of things, which is really cool. Hey, Fight Milk, Dearbard, Stonic, Mel. How's it going? Let me see if I can find him, just so that you guys can do a little bit of a dive into it while I do this. Yeah, here we go. Here you can have a look. The artist is called Julian Holm, and here you can see aesthetically it's very, you know, it's World War II type things, but it's significantly more alien. But nevertheless, there's some really cool shapes happening. This kind of, all these things is just, I love that, this kind of stuff. It's really cool designs. So if you want to be inspired by some odd decisions and good shape language, this guy is really interesting. I haven't really heard about him. I assume it's a him. Before, really. It's a really cool style, very strong design sense, which is, you know, which is fantastic to see. There's definitely should be more people like that, and that's why I'm very happy to share his portfolio here, because it is just right up my alley. You know, I really love that kind of stuff, and that's the things that kind of gets me going. And whenever I see that, I just in my mind go, yes, yes, yes. That's what the industry is all about. But that's also the beauty of the industry, is that it's not all that the industry is about. Designs, right? There's illustrators, there's viz devs, and all these things, right? I think that's also the beauty of it. That yes, I personally I'm very into design, but I'm also happy that just because I'm into design doesn't mean that all other people design the same way, right? And I'm happy to see a lot of variation, a lot of different personalities. I'm very glad to see, in terms of designer and the output, that there's a huge variety of output in terms of flavor and style. And yes, there is a lot of repetition in a lot of artists. You know, they copy their idols. But I'm very happy that the fact that it's not so gray, the output from a lot of artists. There's a lot of individuals in terms of style and color and so on. Hey Bruno Romanos, how's it going? So for example, as a threshold of quality threshold, that guy, like, I wouldn't think twice about hiring that guy, because looking at his work, I can see that he understands design, rhythm, shapes. So my only concern would be, you know, like, can he do fantasy? But judging by his design choices and artistic decisions, he would most likely be able to do that, no problem. But you can see that he's hard surface fan. Hey, look at this. He has done a desert motor wheel. That is hilarious. Some front weight, nice. The balance, thumbnails. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Kaleri, how's it going? You feel copying is a way to learn, Stonic? Yeah, copying is a way to learn. I wouldn't say it's the best way to learn. But copying and repetition is a big part of learning a new thing, right? You have to repeat the same moves. You have to do the same thing over and over in order to be good at it, right? Calere, you're doing gaming and art? That's multitasking to a whole new level. Fight milk. Anyway, so yeah, repetition and learning by copying. The problem with copying, why I don't like copying, in terms of, this artist is what I love, I will learn to draw like this said artist. What I don't like about it is that you are always behind that artist. and the evolution of that artist, and you're playing catch up. There's a lot of people also who don't have the intellect, or, I mean, this sounds very high horse, but don't have the intellect or the capability to fully understand by copying. Like I said, it sounds quite horrible to say that, but it could be not only like in IQ points, but the ability to decipher something on your own accord, do research on your own accord. All these small things that can contribute to you fully understand something by imitating. Like I knew a guy. Hey, Miguel, how's it going? What up? So I knew a guy way back when who wanted to be just like Craig Mullins. I knew I can do two parallels. I knew two people. One guy flat out said, I'm gonna learn everything I know about how Craig Mullins does this, because this style is exactly what I want to do. So he set out by experimenting with Craig Mullins' style. He reverse engineered Craig Mullins' paintings. This was like 2001, 2000, way back when. So he broke down by looking at Craig Mullins' images. He imitated brushes. He tried to imitate how Craig Mullins built the image from ground up. He straight up tried to make a carbon copy, not of his images, but of his technique, right? So he just flat out mimic. And he did this over and over and over. He constantly compared his output to Craig Mullins' output. What is he missing? Should he be more suggestive? Should he be more figurative? Should he be more colorful? All these things, right? So he constantly. But he never copied Craig Mullins' images. He only copied the process. And he literally broke it down like a mad scientist. He analyzed how they do it, how he do it, and implemented like an approach. So he threw out his old painting ways and reconfigured his new art persona to match that of Craig Mullins. Hey Ajday, how's it going? So he did that. He absolutely absorbed himself into Craig Mullins' style. He got so good at a point where it was really hard to distinguish who's who based on painting technique. But because this artist had not copied Craig Mullins' paintings, but Craig Mullins' technique, he still maintained who he was in terms of subject and all those things, right? So you could see when this artist posted a painting, it was like straight up Craig Mullins' technique, but you knew it was his because he didn't paint the same thing. Craig Mullins had a lot more mature and old school illustration subjects constantly, while this guy, he had more youthful, like robots and helicopters and all these things, which Craig Mullins really don't do, like mechanical dragons and all these things. Craig Mullins don't really do that. He kind of sticks with like traditional illustration topics. Derek Brocki, he doesn't do Craig Mullins style, I would say. He uses a speed paint technique, but it's way more adapted and modern than Craig Mullins. Craig Mullins is one of those kind of old school illustrators where a lot of new people nowadays they use a lot of 3D and other techniques, render engines and so on, to get where Craig Mullins are in knowledge, and Derek is one of those. I wouldn't say he's cheating, but comparatively he is cheating. But I'm not taking away anything from Derek's skill set, or in what he does is amazing, but comparatively, one of those old school illustrators, they have like a ocean of knowledge, absolutely different than any more or less modern painter know today, because they come from a completely different types of school background, knowledge, history, all these things. Nice, Fuxia. Nice to have you here. There, Bart. Right. Yeah, but I mean, if you would pull up each of them's images, you would see that Derek is obviously inspired by Craig Mullins, because Craig Mullins is like the OG, the original gangster of digital illustration, more or less. And you can see that legacy in Derek's work. Ricky, I would say he's still working, but Craig Mullins, I would say, much like what's his name, Crypt Crawler. His real name I can't really remember, but they get really well paid, and their paintings take a long time. So I think what, for example, Craig Mullins does, he does maybe one illustration a month, one illustration every third month, but he gets a lot of money for it because they're high-end illustrations, like marketing art and so on, and probably does some teaching and things like that. So I think his day-to-day stuff isn't really anymore about having an online presence. I think he's turned into one of those kind of ninja assassins that are in the industry, that have zero online presence, and they just keep slaying anonymously, Einstein, isn't today's standard cheating a good thing? It is, to some degree. Absolutely, I agree. Cheating is a good thing this day and age. It's not a good thing. It's become standard to use Octane and things like that to render light, and so you don't need to know light to get a great result. You can visually see what you're doing and get a good result by seeing and by observing. Old school way is being able to do that in your mind, project it in your mind of what you want to do, and then knowing the process to create that, and having the ability to envision different outputs before you do them, and then you decide in your mind, okay, I'm going to go for this, right? Whereas modern day, with the technology, you can go, what does it look like in sunset? Click a button, and the engine changes the light setup. What does it look like in the morning? Plus 2 hours, and I'm going to change the sky color, and everything is calculated for you right there, real time, on the spot, right? Old school illustrators, they would do that exact same thing, but in their mind, right? And they could reproduce that by hand, because they would have that old school way of doing things, right? So in a way, the cheating aspect of modern day technology is that, yes, you can get a result faster, but like with everything, if you're cheating and you don't know you don't know it by heart, you're using the tools to get to the end result, you are cheating yourself in terms of knowledge, right? If you don't, if you're reliant on a program to work for you to be able to do your job, you are stuck, right? Or as an example, right, I can do an orthographics, I can do any design in any angle I want, because I have trained my thinking to see what it looks like in 3D space, right? So I can do an orthographic of this guy really fast, no problem, because I've practiced turning form in 3D space. While someone that is heavily reliant on a 3D program in order for them to see the shapes they design, and then they rely on the camera to be able to rotate around these shapes that they have designed. They don't need to practice that 3D thinking, which in then return, if they don't have 3D, they're going to struggle to design as interesting shapes as they do with 3D. But like comparatively, I do 3D and I have that strong 3D thinking regardless, and I will still be able to make really good designs in 3D, where you flip it around, the person who doesn't have that experience is going to struggle, and they're reliant on that program to make that shortcut for them. And that's the whole thing about, you know, like learn your basics really, really, really well, and design principles really, really, really well if you're going to be a concept artist. Then it's arbitrary what topic, what program, what subject, what style. It's the same principles. But if you rely on a certain shortcut or rely on a certain process to get a good result, and if you don't get to have that process, you're going to stumble. Atski, Brad Rigney, yeah, crypt crawler, Brad Rigney. Yeah, so that's, you know, that's the interesting aspect of it, which I always think about, and which I deliberately had in mind when I started out, when I wanted to get into the industries, was that like I went at it at a bare bone type of approach, where I just draw everything. I'm not gonna, you know, be dependent on anything. I'll just be dependent on my brain. If I practice with my brain, then it doesn't matter if I use Photoshop or pen and paper, or, you know. And also I've been practicing maintaining that approach even when I'm doing experiments like I'm doing on the warm-ups, you know, like with color theory, with different kind of painting techniques, with color gamuts and so on and so forth. I'm deciphering what that lesson brings me and implementing it into my way of thinking, because I want to use my way of thinking, right? Not being dependent on someone else providing me a gamut mask. That I want to understand the gamut mask, I want to understand the principles of it, and then implement it into my own creative process, so that that I can rely that on my mind with that, you know. So that, let's say I use render engine to get mood, time of day out, right? I'm going to create a morning scene, and by me having a solid understanding of gamut masks, I know that I shouldn't have like a rainbow spectrum of colors in my morning light setup, right? I should have these principles. I should kind of narrow it down a little bit, maybe a little bit more color into the shadows or something, you know, so that you harmonize by understanding why you harmonize a color gamut. and all these things, right? But then you could also, exact same understanding you could use in acrylics or in Photoshop or web design. You're 3 hours into your 30-minute break. That's pro level procrastination right there. So for me, this whole subject is really fascinating, and I really like the idea of fully grasping a subject instead of relying on shortcuts. Shortcuts are great. In my experience, I've also like jumped into learning a new program, right? And being forced to understand a completely new process and learn how things work and so on. And I think that's great. It can absolutely change how you see things. But nevertheless, every time that happens, I still try to understand what's happening, you know, what that implies onto my own work, how can I use it in my way, all these things. And a lot of these comes with time, right? I can see on the Discord that a lot of you are still struggling with, you know, like artistically who you are, just because you don't have the mileage yet. And a lot of it is you know, it takes time. Like I talked about Zeolin, that Zeolin is maybe a year away from getting hired with ease. And a year of drawing, and Zeolin is already well on his way to get to a good level. And there's already like years behind that practice, and then add 10 years, you know, which adds a completely different aspect to it. And I think it's also a huge it's a huge chance of being comfortable as well. I see a lot of artists around me stagnate. Like a lot of artists who really did some really fascinating things a few years ago, and they're still doing the same things today. And you can clearly see skill-wise they've stagnated. They haven't pushed, they haven't explored new things, they haven't expanded their repertoire, you know. So it's also very important to learn new things and to try new things. And you know, in this example of using 3D engines to render your scenes and so on, that could be a very big important step to take, or it's not. And alla prima painting techniques might be the really important big step to take, and you never know until you try and experiment and learn and expand. But I think one of the biggest things that's like an underlying current in all this is like one of the first things I said, that there's a huge output in many different styles from so many different artists, which is the beautiful thing in this industry, is that everyone can paint a little bit different and still have a space in the industry and do the same job like all of us are doing, but in their own personal flavor and decisions, which is really, really, you know, I think that's the coolest thing about it all. You can hear his head growing from here. Yeah, that ego. Stygius. In theory, yes, I always give people feedback, but I tend to focus more on subs sketchbooks. So you tell me on Discord if you're a subscriber that you want your own sketchbook section, and I tend to look a little bit more and have more time there, just as a thank you for being a sub, you know. But overall, though, I've always been trying to push the Discord to help each other, give feedback to each other, and don't just you know, help each other grow. You will all grow much faster and be more well-rounded by hearing other people's ideas and suggestions and point of views, others than from your own. And who knows, maybe someone will give you feedback about something that will completely change your point of view. And it has happened to me in the past. Someone have said something and I go, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And after that day, I've understood something completely different, and I've changed my understanding of it purely based on someone's comment, which is great, you know. Still, yes, that's cool. But I mean, the basic idea of my principle is you have to push yourself, right? That's why it's important to hear a lot of feedback from other people, their point of view, what they're seeing, and you should compare it to where your own inner light, in terms of, you know, like lighthouse, you know, where you're heading, which direction you like to go, right? So it's very important to figure out like what you want to do, and artistically, where are you going? I mean, I have changed over the years a lot of artistic directions. It hasn't been a straight line. I've gone like this, I've jumped straight across, started going this way, going that way, line art, painting, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you can still track that passion, that interest in different styles. And it's always important to have like a goal, inspiration wise, like these styles are awesome, these artists with colors are fantastic, I want to get somewhere like that at some point. I like vivid colors. Personally, I like vivid colors and texture work, right? So whenever I see that on an artist, I just kind of roll around in it like a cat with catnip. Then but for someone else, it might be absolutely boring because they are interested in line art. You know, but it's important for you as the artist to understand what you are after. And if you rely on someone else to tell you what you are after, you're in their mercy of knowing who you are, which is, you know, impossible. So a lot of shit is what you do. You have to decide a lot of yourself, you know, and push yourself and keep yourself busy and having fun and, you know, all these things. Time is up. A lot of wonky shapes here. All over the place. Anyways, Anyways. Erika, yeah. It is the driver of the mono wheel. The sketch is okay. I'm not fully happy with it, but it is a pretty good start. Miguel, that's great. That's great. A rocket barrage? No, I won't. I won't join. And that's an interesting thing, actually. You know, like let's say you have your collections on ArtStation. I'm quite sure that looking at other people's collections, there is a wide selection. I think there's a wide range, and looking at someone's collections, you can see what they're going for, and you can clearly see, like, my collection is creatures and characters, and painterly, textural, vivid colors. You can clearly see, you know, like what I'm going for, right? And you can probably see at someone else's collections what they like, and I find that that's really, really cool. And obviously mine is extremely character centric, and colors and textures. Those are the things that like instantly stick in my book. Captain Bose, yeah, Julian Holmes. All right, let's find someone to raid. I gotta get to work. Let's raid Tim. Right, thanks everyone for joining in. Have a fantastic day. Have a great weekend. If you're on the other side of the world, good night. Have a good day here. Let's do the outro, and after the outro, take you to the raid. So stick around. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a good one.